when I started school, we had the neighborhood schools, and I went down to the gym. We walked to school. Of course, we felt very safe in those days because there were no cars going by, and all the neighbors knew you, and you felt free to just stop anywhere at any time. And then after the neighborhood schools were at the gym, Don's Market, the beginning of Island Pond Road in West Hampstead, down near the Episcopal Church, the Union Church in East Hampstead, nearby there.
In 1945, I went on the school board. The second year, I became chairman, and I paid all the bills, run the school. Brenda Lewison was on with me about the same time, and I paid all the teachers, I made all the checks for the teachers, the salaries for everybody, and Abby Randall was treasurer, and I was school board, so I made the checks and brought them to Abby Randall. She signed them and delivered them to the teachers. And I got $25 a year.
Does anybody remember the first firehouse in this town?
Yeah,
That
but
was up there
Ingram-
on Ingrams.
Sorry,
What's that, the
it was
Littlefield
in my
house?
yard.
In your yard,
And
it's
it had
on
a
Main
little-
Street.
Little chemical pumper in
Yeah.
there, with
I remember.
wheels that high, and it was pulled by men. And that fire engine disappeared, and I never knew where it went. I don't know whether it was stolen or whether an antique dealer got it from my mother. But there was a little glass sign over the door that said Hampstead Chemical One. And that was before anybody even thought of
That's
fire
where you
engine.
were as a
It
child,
was,
where
it was
you lived in
between
the
our
center of
house,
the town. No,
between our
no.
house and
Yeah,
Emerson's, right in
yeah.
the field. The first police station was in Gil Buckland's house, as I remember. And he was the- It was torn down. It was at the end of the road that's now Cranberry Meadows.
St. John.
Yeah, and the Buckland family lived there, and he was a World War I veteran, and he put on his captain's uniform and stuck a police badge on his hat, and he was the local cop. He used to go to the dance halls on Saturday nights.
About what year was this?
The one that, and it was in my yard?
Yes.
Oh, golly, I was born in 1920, and as long as I can remember, it was there. So prior to that, it was around. I don't remember what happened in 1920.
I mean, we had, which was Priscilla's aunt, she was the telephone operator. And she was the town, if there was a fire, they called her, and she called people to go to the fire. And Dr. Moore was our doctor at the time, and he could go and play bridge at someone's house. He'd call Molly and say, well, I'm at so-and-so's playing bridge, and if somebody needs me. So we didn't have to have all these gadgets and pay all this money. And even our children, we would probably go shopping, and we'd call the operator, and when they'd come home from school, if we weren't there, they'd ring the bell. We had to ring on it.
Well, there it is.
Years ago. And the children would say, where's my mother? And she'd say, now, calm down, she's shopping, she'll be right home, change her clothes, get a cookie, she'll be right home. So we never had to worry. Everybody helped one another. If we had problems, everybody got together.
It was so nice because you didn't have to know any numbers back then.
No.
You would just call, ring the telephone, and you would say, Sandy Curry's, please, or Levi Dustin's, please. And she would connect us to the one. It was great.
And then we had party lines, and that's where we had our entertainment.
You didn't tell them to go.
Well, we did before we knew not to.
The telephone operator was Molly Davis.
Yeah.
And when we shifted over to another level of, we had our choice of 329 or 787 or whatever it was. 329 is Davis. In memory of Molly.
The shoe shop.
Shoe
The
shop.
shoe shop, which had
Yeah.
about 200 people working in there,
I worked there.
that was down beside Shop Pond. And most
I was
of
there.
the town that wasn't farming, the people in town that weren't farming were in there.
You got out of school.
after you turn 16.
After you get out, I
American,
did.
most of us had a whack at the shoe factory at one time or another. My first good job was driving the mail in 1938. And I drove the mail from here to the old railroad station down in Atkinson, delivered along the way. 6 days a week for $6. And I started at 7 in the morning, got done at 6:30 at night.
That money
Heck,
went
I
along.
had pocket money.
When you talk about jobs, though, we all basically farms, and we had to work. I mean, if you could walk, you worked.
We all did that.
I cut a few stalks of corn for your father.
I know it. I mean, you know, and I said to my father, not so long ago, well, of course, quite a while now, but I said, how about that yellow stuff in the garden, that, between the corn? I said, I see an awful lot of it, nobody's pulling it. And he laughed and he said, but it kept you busy, didn't it? You know, it'd make us, that's why we never could get into trouble. Because if you could walk, you worked, and you were tired. trouble.
I used to, where Jones Market is now, it used to be Boston Beef Company, that was Harold Brick
Yeah.
first. And
Yeah.
Mr. Bricky used to go out and take orders in the morning, I used to deliver them after school.
Yeah,
He had a route over.
They deliver it.
I had a route over
Yeah,
on
they
Governor's Island, and I used to go down those roads on Governor's Island probably 40 miles an hour. Today I wouldn't go down 10 miles an hour.
And they had the big ice house down there that belonged to Levi Dustin.
Yeah. I used
And
to go
some
down
of
there
us
and walk
kids
on
used
the
to get out
block.
of school for a week or two
Blocks of ice.
to work there when they were harvesting. But I remember he bought a 21-foot dory, a boat, with a little one-cylinder engine in it, and he put it in Island Pond, and one of his sons and myself would put, I think it was 9 or 10 300-pound bars of ice in that boat. And then we'd go around Island Pond and the islands delivering ice to the camps.
There was one winter I didn't have too much to do for a short time, and Levi Dustin owned the ice business at that time,
Yeah.
and he needed help. So, yeah, I'll help you out. Well, I was at the sluiceway, they'd cut the ice and they'd bring it in the sluiceway. And I was the one responsible for putting it onto this elevated mechanism. It was powered at that time. And it would go up to the whatever elevation they set the ramps at. And it would turn itself and go in, and the fellows inside would take it and slide it wherever they wanted it. As they worked their way up, they covered these layers over. It was one of the coldest days I ever put in. I had a scarf wrapped around my neck, all my clothes, all I owned was clothes, and he decided to quit for the day. It was so cold. When I was a kid, I was too young to operate the sawmill, but it was a water wheel. And those old two gears going together would made a lot of noise. But my father went over there and cut out all this tomato box lumber and built these little boxes, 6 by 9 inches, 3 inches deep. And those he would fill with soil and sell the plants in the spring. And he cut the trees out in the woods, stuff that he could handle, 52, 54 inches long, maybe this large in diameter. And he started with that log and saw them up into these small strips. And that was his job. Then the boys, and here's one of them here, maybe Ralph. Yeah. My father used to pay him roughly a cent a box to nail these boxes together. At one time, Bill Davies, he's long gone,
Oh, yeah.
but he got everybody, he got a hold of some cigars, used cigars from somebody, got everybody to smoke them but me. I didn't dare smoke because it was my father's place, you know. But I was the only one that wasn't sick.
But we all had jobs to do before to go to school. And like in our school, we had basketball games and we had baseball, but we had to wait for the boys who played basketball to finish their chores before we could go to the game. They'd say, come on, so-and-so isn't here yet, can't wait, he's gonna milk the cows. And we'd have to wait for them to finish milking the cows, and then we could go on to
The farmers would put their cattle out to pasture. They'd drive them right up the main street and put them out to pasture for the summer. And every once in a while, one of these cows would break out and go wild and be running around town in the middle of the night, putting big hoof prints in everybody's garden and tearing up their hedges and everything. And the town would say, okay, there's $5 to whoever can get that cow. And the only one I ever knew that got one was Ed Coombs. And the town paid him $5. I don't know what happened to the cow.
My father used to pasture cows down where Bradley's is now. And of course, we had a horse and wagon to get there, and he'd have to go down, well, a Sunday afternoon ride. He'd hitch the horse to a wagon or a sleigh in the winter, not in the winter, but he'd take us to school with a sleigh in the winter. But we'd go down Sunday afternoons and check on the cows. And that was our afternoon at the
How
church.
long would it take you to get there?
A long time. And then we'd go to Salem to have, when the horses need shoes. And that was a day's ride. And he was
Yeah.
always glad to have us ride with him, and we were glad to go. It was a big event, all day.
When I was a little kid, there were 3 cottages on that
Just
place
gonna
that
say,
belonged to
Michael.
3 families in Havel. And my father's little boathouse, which used to be
I don't
down
know
in Mary Dickey Cove. And he bought the boathouse from somebody for $10, and he paid an old man named Charlie Tarbox $10 to put it on a pond in the winter and bring it over to that vacant place on your shore. But there were three camps, and then Howard Putnam built one up on the end over near where Telnora is.
Yeah.
But there was nothing there.
And Charles and my dad had a chance to buy this whole side of Sunset Lake one time for $400. And Grandpa Clark said, don't be foolish, waste your money on that.
I was wondering, Mr. Clark mentioned that his father could have bought that land around the lake for, what was it?
$400.
When did when did the Cohen people come up and buy the property for the camp?
They bought it in probably, I think probably around the middle 50s. Because that burned, I was police chief here for 13 years, and that burned right after I got elected, and that was 57, so, and they owned it sometime before
Before
that.
that? I wondered just how they found the land, I mean, how they got onto it.
The town had a chance to buy that whole parcel for recreational purposes, $40,000, and the selectmen, old-fashioned selectmen like Doris Pollock, she was a selectman for years, and they turned it down. $40,000 they bought it for.
The ice houses were torn down in the late 40s after the war because the boys, the Dustin boys and the Dustin in-laws tore down the houses at that time. And then I think Levi sold the land that the ice house was on to Camp Telnor. And that was late 40s, early.
And then he also sold land further along the shore too.
Yes, then he bought parcels and cut them up and sold. So, that's not.
Is that the same time, the 50s, when most of the land around Wash Pond was sold?
Sunset
No, it was
Lake.
before that.
Oh, before that,
It was in the 30s because Mr. Howells bought
Right.
a big piece of land over there and lumbered it off and built a few camps, and we used to call it Little Saugus. Because that's where he came from. He sold the camps to people from Saugus.
We used to walk around the lake, and there wasn't one cottage there then. We used to, my cousins, and their mother and fathers used to walk around the lake. Took your lunch down the Bailey Shore. No cottages at all rocks. But now it's full.
Wash Pond was named from a pond in Hampstead, England, that we visited years ago, where the kings, after the mud season, the king's chariots, or whatever they were called, would be brought out to this pond on Hampstead Heath and washed. And that's why that was called a wash pond. And I think this probably was named after that.
I know as teenagers, we used to walk, well, I lived near where the schools are. Excuse me, and we used to walk over to where you go swimming now, the town beach. And there used to be a dance hall that went out over the lake. owned by Mr. L's.
Yeah.
And he had pool table.
Eleanor's still there.
Is Eleanor still there?
Yeah, right inside. She's there.
And we used to, Mr. L's, he liked us, but he didn't like us. He liked our money.
He called him grumpy.
Yeah, grumpy. And so when they didn't have a band or something playing, we'd sneak over there. We'd sneak and we'd go out into the dance hall. And he had a jukebox. And Les Dustin, he used to be able to tip that just right, so it would play. But it had a little hum. And he'd come out and he'd say, "Who did it?" "We don't know. Must be something wrong." And he'd go back out and tend to his store, and pretty soon we'd have that hum and again. And that was our entertainment.
Charlie Clark's father used to show movies upstairs in the town hall.
Yeah, I did. I used to go to
When we were kids, we all used to go there.
Yeah.
They had a
They had
piano
that.
player to bring the
Yeah, his
music.
mother
Yeah,
used
that
to
was
play the piano,
Yeah, right.
Aunt Marion.
Yeah.
It was like we had a lot of fun. I mean, we'd all get together, and if you had a quarter, we'd get 4 people, and that would be, enough to fill some, 8 gallons for $1 or so like that, We'd get that, and then we'd stop by, somebody'd have watermelon in the field, So somebody'd have a few ears of corn. So we'd just borrow it, and we'd head for the beach. And that's when you could have fire on the beach. And and you have roast corn and watermelon. And they never stopped us for that. In fact, I think the people thought, we better take it. It's what I think they left it out there for us. But we didn't do anything like that because, you'd be punished more at home than you would if a cop would.
There was nothing destructive at the time.
No.
Usually people think like when you put an outhouse up on top of the roof, somebody's roof.
Well, we used to put for sale on the church or Monte Glories or something.
They took the sign from the greenhouse and they had closed Sundays and they
Yeah.
put it up on the church. Closed.
That was my father's sign. Also, we had some people that lived near us, towards my house where I'm living today, that came up from Boston just in the summer. So they had an outhouse. Well, this outhouse, 4th of July, landed on my father's lawn. No one knows how it ever got there. But those people, they were so mad. They were gonna leave town, they hated him, and my father was able to talk them out of it. That it was just a prank that they did on 4th of July.
As a kid, they don't do it today like we did, but we used to go sliding, and it was down by, well, that was Pinky's, I guess that was your house there. Yeah, it's we used to call it Molly's Hill. And in the evening, you'd see all the kids up there with sleds and sliding, and as the evening progressed, the younger kids would go home, and then, finally you'd have most of the high school kids, and we had to walk. It was during the war, so gas was short, and I lived at the time down where the church is down on East Road. And you'd pull your sled and walk home at night, and never think anything of it. I mean, I wouldn't walk. When you get down below Garland's old house, there was no little street light, so I didn't walk very slow. I kind of trotted right along. I won't say I was afraid of the dark, but I didn't waste any time. But the kids used to we'd have real good sliding parties. It's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Talking about snow, when we went to school down at the gym, we could always take our sleds, the toboggans to school. And West Road is a great road for a long
We had an
ride.
ice storm, it was fun,
And we
wasn't it?
knew if we kept going and going and going, recess was over when we got back to school, so we'd go quite a ways. Take quite a way of time falling uphill.
When I graduated from high school, we had 44 students in the whole high school. And at that time, we had 4 teachers for the whole high school and 1 principal. And the principal at that time was Dave Greenlaw. He would teach all the math and physics or chemistry, whatever. He also was the boys and girls basketball and baseball coach. He was quite a guy. And we had what they call initiation. When you left 8th grade, we didn't have graduation then, and you went into the freshman class, you became initiated, and we had what you called Hell Day. And that's where the seniors decided what you would wear. Most of the boys would end up by wearing women's clothing, high heel shoes. I had a butch, and they wanted to put hair ribbons in my hair, and I didn't have much more hair than I do now. But Ken's wife, Mary, was the senior class when I was initiated. She darn near drowned me. She held my head underneath the pump out in front of the town hall, and I didn't think I was going to survive that. But it was a lot of fun.
My wife didn't do that, did she?
Yeah, she sure did. You asked Murph. It was a lot of fun, and I guess it really gave you a feeling of being part of something. That you went through this ritual, and deep in back of your mind said, boy, I'll get those freshmen when it's my turn.
When I was a freshman, I didn't worry too much about initiation because my older brother was a senior. And he was, and I knew he wouldn't let them hurt me too much. But we had to dress up like babies, and we sucked on a baby bottle all day, and oh, we all had the sorest mouth. And in the evening, we went down to the old gym, and they blindfolded us, and they put us in a baby carriage, and they wheeled us across the room. It was a little bit scary, but we all survived.
What did it feel like when Hampstead High closed?
Well, I perhaps hate to admit it, but I was on the school board when I was one of the three that had to make the decision for the townspeople whether we would close it, and go to Pinkerton, go to Sanborn, or spend the money to bring it up to state standards. The state gave new standards. You must teach chemistry every year. You must teach physics every year, and it went along and along. But we had so few students that they taught every other year. So instead of saying freshman English the first year, you might take the second year of English the first year. But it was taught every other year because there wasn't enough students to afford to keep it going. So the town had the vote, and they decided not to bring it up to state standards. And they decided, we suggested and recommended, and Charlie was on the board, to go to Pinkerton. We viewed both, and we went to both places and looked them over, decided this was the better of the two. So that's the way it happened. So half of my children graduated from Hampstead, and the rest graduated Pinkerton.
I remember once when I was janitor at school, and it was around October, I think, and I lit the stove, and the stove wouldn't draw. The school got full of smoke. And I wondered why, but we didn't have any school that day. But come find out, the big boys had got in there and pulled the pipe out and stuffed it full of papers.
Most people had wood stoves, and especially to cook with, in the fall or before winter, they try to clean the chimney out, because wood will produce soot in the chimney. So every once in a while, my father wouldn't do that, but he'd wait for it to burn, because he was always there. Folks were always there. They never went anywhere, didn't have anything to go with. So anyways, it was my job to go into the second floor when this chimney caught on fire. Go on the second floor with a bucket of water, and the chimney was exposed up in the attic, and I just poured it, if I could feel warmth on the brick, just pour the water down just to keep it cool, and let it burn out. If you let it burn out, then it's good for another year. There was no such thing as fire departments then. You had to do your own.
Well, they used to turn the shoe shop out when they had a fire. You know, you'd hear the town hall bell ringing.
Yeah.
And Bill Emerson would turn out the shoe shop fellows, and they'd all go and use a bucket brigade and ladders.
When my sister was born, talking about the doctor charged $10 to deliver a baby back then. And by the time the doctor got his horse hooked up and got to the house, my sister was already born, and so he only charged my father $5.
Oh, I can remember my mother, she got she used to make bandages, for the Red Cross. She had that whole uniform. Oh, that had to be starched and go. And then the men at night, they'd go around. You'd have a certain streets. A man would have to go and make sure no lights showed. Every had to be dark shades or dark drapes. And if you had lights on, and they'd go up to the firehouse, wouldn't they? And sit there 24 hours a day. Somebody would be up there in case we had a raid.
I remember that.
Down where, near where Dr. Moore lives during World War II, they had a plane spotters place down there where they record and call in any aircraft that used to fly over. Bob Air used to be down there.
Mildred, Mabel, didn't you?
We got this far.
Yeah, we,
Well, back where I am now, during World War II, in fact, my house, I had poultry at that time, and I was frozen on the poultry farm during World War II. But during World War II, it was my job, I don't know who was it that ever got me to do it, it was my job to walk from my house down to the foot of, they call it Emerson's Hill today, clear to East Hampstead, where 111 comes in now, look for every house after dark, and if they had a light on, I had to report them.
yeah, that's,
At the door.
And on account of keep it darkness, so that the Germans or whatever couldn't spawn in the area.
What about the railroad station?
There was one in West Hampstead.
yeah, up there.
It was
they
the
had
old Worcester,
people.
Nashua, and Portland Railroad. And I can remember going up there with Louis Darling in a Model T Ford and picking up some padded packages. They had 5-gallon cans inside of them, with picking up the ice cream from the seal test plant in Lawrence and bring it down and put it in his freezer. And also, Mr. Mills, who ran the milk farm down where Telnor is, I remember him coming to my house when I was a little kid and picking my father up with a horse and sleigh, with the snow up here, and taking him up to the West Hampstead Railroad Station. He'd get on the train there, go over to some junction over Windham Junction, and then he'd get on the B&M, go to Lawrence, go into his office, read his mail, get back on the train, and get home for supper. And all he did was read the paper in the mail. He got there by sleigh.